Welcome back to yet another episode of the City That Never Sleeps show. I'm your host, Brandon Pockeris, joined as always by my co-host, Ryan Toomey. Ryan, how are we doing on this post-Memorial Day weekend show?
Glad to see you. Happy you're doing good. And no, let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about.
You know, as we always say, sports, there's a lot of news going on. Not as much as usual, I guess, pertaining to New York. But we got a lot of Mets Yankees discussion, some interesting football discussion, definitely some basketball discussion, not just involving the Knicks, but involving the entirety of the NBA and how that could pertain to the Knicks. Then hockey discussion, because we didn't get to that last week and we want to get to that. So lots of stuff to get into. Let's not waste any time. I think a perfect place to start, baseball. Baseball season is in full swing. And as we have discussed here on this show, there's a point in time when it becomes not too early, in a sense of, for so long, people, when you bring up faults and issues with different players on the roster, different stats, you're saying, oh, it's too early, they'll figure it out, it's too early. Once you get past Memorial Day weekend, you're a third of the way through the season. Things can obviously still change. We saw that with Atlanta. We saw that with Philly. But the issues can be real. The struggling factors that a team may have can be real. And that brings me to the Mets, where we have talked about this, and I hate how on the money we both were. It's a roller coaster. You got the lows of the lows. Season's over. Fire Showalter. Then you go up. Oh, you beat the Rays 2-3. You sweep the Guardians, and then back down. Lost 2-3 to the Chicago Cubs, and lost 2-3 once again to the Colorado Rockies. Now, got to be nuanced here. Not the same type of issues concurrently that there were early in the year. You're getting lineup production. I mean, looking at the past few games, the Mets have scored 10, 7, 5, 10 runs in those games. And then the first two games in the Cubs series, they scored 2 and 2 again. You're getting above average production from your catcher position now. That was not something that was happening early in the year. Francisco Alvarez on the year, 269 average, but has an OPS close to 900. He has 8 home runs and 19 RBIs. He has 6 doubles. Brett Beatty, 710 OPS, 246. A 315 on base percentage. That's really good. And not to mention Pete Alonso leading the majors with 20 home runs. Lindor having 39 RBIs. Brandon Nimmo still playing like a borderline MVP type player. Your lineup is producing now. We talked about it all the time. Even you could throw a bit of Mark Vientos into that. They're playing the young guys to go in conjunction with their stars. And what do you know? The lineup's producing. But they're still losing games. Because the main issue, the main thing with this team is the pitching. 1,000%. It's the pitching. 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 Before we get into talking about this upcoming series this week, the first series, and then we'll talk about the other series they have, what have been your thoughts with the Mets? And I guess, do you see an avenue where the pitching can realistically improve for the better on a consistent basis?
No, for sure. I did want to get into a couple things real quick. They are at a third of the way point. So this is a third of the season for them right now. And again, you said roller coaster. They got to find consistency. And it's not showing. Maybe it is from players day to day, but in the win column, and that's where it's most important. When it comes to their pitching, I mean, this was supposed to be their rock. We've said it on this show before. These were their guys. Verlander, one of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen. Scherzer, one of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen. You got the new guy in Senga, who was supposed to be he was high hopes, very high hopes for Senga. And time will tell I mean, you still have 100 and so games left. There's a lot that can happen, and we've seen it many years. Again, not the panic button, but when is enough with these guys like Verlander and Scherzer? Like, they did take a risk. These guys are both in their 40s. These guys are older veterans who've done everything they needed to in the MLB. They do not need to prove anything else. They're two of the top pitchers of all time. And the wear and tear of a pitching season, that's what, 30 games, right? I think if you're playing the whole entire season, you're going to be pitching 30 games. Hell of a lot of innings, a lot of pitches. I truly you should still be able to trust these guys. But where does the point get to where this looks like a complete collapse of what they thought was going to be a top 5 rotation in the league?
So some of the comments, we got Ryan saying, let's go Phillies. He's saying Phillies, Mets have same issues, but Mets more of the offense, Phillies pitching offense, but way more pitching wise. Rob says, if they hit Alvarez up in the lineup and sit Vogel back in favor of Vientos, I like this lineup against anyone. That's the comment for me. Fully on board with that.
The bullpen too, as well, which we didn't even discuss, but I'm just like,
yeah. Oh, we will get to that. Don't worry. I promise you. We will get to that. Rob says pitching issue for both teams. Really, who goes deeper? We're going to get to that in 1 second. Rob says he agrees to the poll. So our this brings us to before we get to the poll question of the day and really the major Mets discussion. It's ironic because Scherzer and Verlander have flipped in a sense of Scherzer was the guy getting roughed up beginning of the year. And now it seems that he has found his footing a little bit. His past few starts, he's been more consistent. He's gotten it out. He has been good. Verlander has gone with, 2 good starts and then giving up 6 runs against the Rockies and getting knocked out before he can even log a quality start. You look at the bullpen and some of the pitching numbers from them, right? Ottavino, 4.58 ERA. Nagasic, 6.33. Brigham, 3.44. Smith, 3.93. Dennis Santana, who was demoted but has 6.23. Dominic Leone, who for some reason Buck Showalter loves putting in to pitch, a 4.91. John Curtis, a 4.85. These numbers, even without diving into the advanced metrics, without diving into ERA plus and WHIP and all these different stats, on a surface level, they are bad. Simply, on a surface level. You want to dive in the starters? Sure. Tyler McGill, 4.67 ERA. Kodai Senga, 3.94. Scherzer, 3.54. Verlander, 4.80. Like we said, Scherzer's numbers have been better. Senga's been relatively consistent outside of a 1 blow-up start, but his command hasn't been excellent. McGill, he's had decent starts, but I've come up with what I would do with him. I'd put him back in the bullpen and try that again. He seems to get rocked in the 4th inning of every game. He's great for the first 3. Why not make that your long reliever? Seems like a perfect flip for a guy that really hasn't shown the length in games. But all in all, the Mets pitching is what's holding them back. Yes, I get it. It's Coors Field. Yes, I get it. That is a much different environment than most MLB parks. But if the Mets pitching pitch up to standard, not even saying what they were expected, but like a average standard, you're probably sweeping the Rockies, scoring close to 10 runs a game. You're probably within 3 games of the Atlanta Braves because of what the Phillies did in their previous series. But instead, looking at the standings, you're 5 out. You're behind the Marlins. You're at 500. And now you have pivotal series coming up with the Phillies and Braves in the next 2 weeks. So that brings us to our poll question of the day, that the New York Mets will win the series against the Philadelphia Phillies. So as bad as the Mets have been in some cases, and I wouldn't say completely horrible, but not living up to expectations, the Phillies are in that same boat. And this is a New York-based show. We're obviously going to talk more about the Mets-related stuff, but the Phillies have had their pitching issues with the starters. They've had their relief pitching issues with some of the guys they've even brought over with signings in terms of Gregory Soto and Kimbrel at times. But for me, looking at this series, I've joked about this with some of my Philly fan friends, and I truly feel this way. Whatever you think about this series, whatever you think is going to happen, the complete opposite's going to happen. If you truly think you know what's going to happen in this series, with the way both of these teams have played this season, you're out of your mind. You really don't know. Because you have a team in the Phillies who struggled with some of the worst teams in the NL and yet split with the Braves. You have a Mets team that took a series from the Rays and yet can't beat the Nationals. They're both teams that are having pitching problems. They're teams that have had lineup inconsistencies. They're teams that had these expectations, and we talked about it before the year, to be locked in playoff teams, not fighting for a wild card spot behind the Pirates and the Marlins. So I'll toss it back to you. In terms of the poll question, in terms of this series, what are your thoughts on it, and what do you really see happening?
Well, I want to get a look. I want to check out the pitching matchups and everything that has to go into the series.
I have the pitching matchups pulled up.
Please, if you go through those real fast. And
yes.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, the starting lineup for tonight. Oh, great. You know what? I'm gonna rant about this for a second. So Nimmo, Alvarez, perfect. Love that. Then Lindor, Alonso, Vientos DHing. Awesome. Marte and right. Okay, good. You're not playing him in center. That cost you a game. McNeil at second. But Tommy Pham in left and Eduardo Escobar at third base. I don't understand why you're sitting Brett Beatty after having an off day when he's been one of your better players in terms of just getting on base and being productive. It's just, that's frustrating. And then, I mean, that's really my only gripe. Pham's fine. I'm not a fan of him. I'd rather have a Mauricio in that spot and then move McNeil to left. But I don't understand not having Brett Beatty in the lineup. But to get back to what you said, sorry, tangent.
Don't go ahead.
Pitching matchup, Ranger Suarez, 0-1, 9.82 ERA versus Kodai Senga, 4-3, 3.94 ERA. Game 2 tomorrow at 7:10. We got Aaron Nola versus Carlos Carrasco. Nola is 4-3 with a 4.59 ERA versus Carrasco, who's 1-2 with a 6.75. And then game 3 on Thursday, we got Taijuan Walker, who is 4-2 with a 5.57 versus Max Scherzer, who is 4-2 with a 3.54. What are your thoughts based on those pitching matchups?
Just hearing it out, it sounds like if both offenses for the teams are looking good, then they're going to have a hell of a series with runs. It sounds like, just from looking at that. But I don't know. Right there, I see a Taijuan Walker little revenge game for the Mets coming back. I don't know if he's pitched against them yet this year. I don't think so. No, so that'd be his first game back. I mean,
well, this is the first Mets-Phillies series of the year.
Series of the season. Wow, very cool, very cool. Big time. Nice little rivalry they got going there. But no, I mean, I really feel that just the trajectory of the Mets are going right now. I see the Phillies taking 2 of the 3. I have the Phillies win this series. And
so we have a comment. Thompson does that too with the lineup when it comes to Stott and Marsh. Alcom needs to stay at third full time. Yeah, it's ironic how these two teams are in extremely similar boats, like to a crazy extent. But you have the Phillies taking 2 or 3?
I have the Phillies. I mean, I don't trust Carrasco. I really don't. I've watched mostly the Mets games I've seen is Carrasco, and he just does not look good out there at all. I still sadly have not been able to watch Verlander or Scherzer, maybe 1 or 2 starts from them combined, but I'm really seeing the back end of the Mets bullpen when I watch. And when I do, it is not a good sight from all the games I've seen.
Well, David Robertson's been great.
Oh, no, I mean the back end of the rotation.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, backhand in the bullpen has been like
No.
maybe
Now
the
I'm getting
strength for this team.
Now the question for you, like, is besides Robertson, is there anyone else in that bullpen that you trust?
I did trust Ottavino, but I think he'll figure it out. And then after that, Drew Smith in the right situation. But it goes to the problem, and I'll get to this question first. Are the Mets all fluent runners in scoring position? We know the Phillies are. I think the Mets are a little bit better this year, but they still haven't been excellent in that regard. The problem is with the bullpen, and the Phillies, I think, have had this issue too. Because your starters haven't given you quality starts, you have had to use that bullpen so much to where you're probably having some guys going through struggles because hitters are seeing them a lot. They're in a ton because the starters haven't really done their job. With all this being said, I'm going to go with the Mets winning the series against the Phillies, not because just, Mets over Phillies, because if the Mets truly were like horrendous, I would take the Phillies. Number one, the Mets got very lucky with their pitching matchups in this series. I really like Kodai Senga and what he's been doing this year. Obviously, if you have the walk issue, which has bitten him, we look at the stats. Senga has 31 walks in 48 innings pitched. Not what you want to see, but he also has 61 strikeouts. So he's getting a lot of swings and misses, but he's walking a lot of guys, which is causing that ERA to be higher than what it probably should be. He's getting his feet under him. Remember, this is first year in the major leagues in America. Baseball is different here as opposed to overseas. This is well known. That adjustment period is a real thing. The fact we have Scherzer pitching, I'm very confident in because he has been better. He's the guy out of him and Verlander, where he's been more on the upswing and Verlander's been more on the downswing. You want to see that consistency against a better lineup than what Scherzer has faced. But at the same time, it's very good and will be a very good test to see what he's able to do. The Carrasco thing, yes, I agree with you, but Carrasco just had a great start. His last start was, I'm pretty sure, the one win the Mets had in either the Chicago or the, I can actually double check that. The win against the Cubs was, Carrasco, who went 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 4 Ks, 2 walks.
There you go.
That exactly what this team needs. And with the way they've been hitting, for the most part, at least in the last game of the Cubs series and in the Rocky series, that's all you need out of your starting pitching. So I feel better about that. In terms of who the Mets are facing, I feel good about Ranger Suarez because he hasn't been good, and the Mets have typically done decent against him. Nothing over the top because he's a lefty, and the Mets tend to struggle sometimes against lefties. But he's not a guy I'm scared of in this series. Aaron Nola? Well, if I know anything about how these two teams work, this game will randomly end up being the 1-0, 2-1 just pitcher's duel because both these guys have been struggling the whole year. That's just the way these two teams have worked. And then I'm confident in Scherzer against the Phillies, but Taijuan, at least at Citi Field, has always been a pretty good pitcher. He always has the second half struggles. But I was not a fan of Walker signing with the Phillies because Taijuan is a fly ball pitcher. When he gives up his contact, it's fly balls. That worked better in Citi Field because Citi Field is a pitcher's ballpark. Citizens Bank is not. I could see Taijuan Walker having a lot more success in this last game of the series against the Mets than he usually does or has this season because he is more of a pitcher that induces fly ball type contact. That's why when his stuff has dipped over the past few years when he's with the Mets in the second half, that's why he gave up a lot of home runs. Because instead of getting that ball that falls into the outfielder's glove, it's now going over the wall. But the up and down nature of this Mets year, the way they've bounced back after losing series for the most part this year, the way the pitching matchups line up, like these different factors, I think are in the Mets' favor. And I could be wrong. I've been wrong the past 2 weeks. I said they were going to get smoked in the Rays series, and they won. I said they were going to do fine this past week, and they went 2-4. So whatever I say,
you got to win the games that you're supposed to win. Like when you're facing series against teams like the Cubs and Rockies, you got to pull out 2 of the 3.
But a pattern of this Mets season has been very interesting. They are beating the good teams and losing to the bad teams, which is not a good recipe for success. But they've taken series from the Dodgers. They've taken a series from the Rays. I'm pretty sure they took a series from San Diego at the beginning of the year. And yeah, San Diego isn't great, but these are teams that are talent-wise are some of the best in baseball.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting how that lines up. But you got the Phillies. I got the Mets. All in all, I don't think we're going to know too much.
It's going to be a good matchup.
It's going to be more of what do the games show us instead of, we're going to just nail these predictions. And after the Philly series, the Mets have an opportunity to help out the rest of the AL East because they have a 3-game set at home versus the Blue Jays before they head to Atlanta. We will cover that Atlanta series next week because that starts next Tuesday at 7:20. In terms of this is the last thing we'll talk about before we get to the Yankees and then baseball picks of the day. In terms of the Phillies series and the Blue Jays series, I have the Mets winning the series, so what I'm going to say 2 of 3. Blue Jays series, what do you think is their record at the end of this 6-game stretch?
27-27 right now. Just how their season's going, 30-30. They've been very consistent with being just at 500 for the past couple. I guess I have my notes here. I'm curious to see, but 30-30 seems safe. Got the Blue Jays team that's been struggling too.
So you're going with a series win against Toronto?
Yes, in that case, yeah, they take 2-1.
All right. Got some comments. Me when seeing tonight's lineup come out with Alvarez in the 2-hole and Vientos at DH. Yes, it took Buck Showalter 15 games to finally move one of his best hitters out of the 9-hole. We love seeing Vientos at DH as well. He said he's surprised to see Vientos at DH and Escobar at third. Thought it'll be the other way around, especially going against the lefty and Beatty sitting. I agree. Beatty's been probably their best defensive third baseman as well, which is ironic because one of the main reasons he wasn't called up was because of his defense. That's a conversation for another day. But looking at this 6-game stretch, if I'm going with a win, a Mets series win against the Phillies, I'm going to say they're 5-2 after this stretch. Or 5-2, 6-1 in that range. I think they have a shot to lose this series against Toronto just because looking at the probable pitching matchups. Bassett versus Verlander, Toronto's lineup has the talent, and they've struggled. Verlander struggled. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
And you also have Chris Bassett making his return to Queens to face off against his old team. He started to turn it around. Bassett's a guy I'm very worried about in terms of facing the Mets. I don't think the Mets win that one. The game after that, Jose Berrios versus McGill, that's probably going to be a 10-9 game with the way those two guys have pitched. I'm going to take the Mets in that one. And then Kikuchi versus Senga. You know what? Yeah, I guess I'll go with 6-1 in this. Or it's not 6-1. That'd be
5-1.
5-1. Yeah, I'll go with 5-1 in this stretch. I'm just a fan of most of these pitching matchups and who the Mets are facing. And guess what? I'm probably going to be wrong. I'm just prefacing it. I'm probably going to be wrong. And that's okay. But I truly like, number one, how the Mets lineup has been producing. Even outside of Coors, they've been starting to hit the ball a lot better. Number 2, I like the types of pitchers that are lined up for these games. And number 3, I just think with the way this season is going, it's been up, it's been down. This was the down week. I think we're going on the up week.
There
And
we go.
that's a terrible pattern because I don't want to get swept by the Braves again. Or close to getting swept by the Braves again.
Yeah.
But we will see. We honestly will see.
No, for sure.
I think that wraps up our Mets conversation. And now it is time to talk about, arguably, not arguably in terms of record, the better New York team this season, the New York Yankees, who are in third place with a 33-23 record, would be comfortably in first place in the AL Central. But they are still 6 games out of first place and are 2 games still behind the Baltimore Orioles. So, to me, I know we talked about Alonso hitting 20 home runs already. He's on pace to get close to 60. Aaron Judge is looking like his MVP self again. Why don't you get us started with that?
No, yeah, I guess to start with him, I mean, I have his numbers right here, but since coming off the IL, I don't think there's been a better hitter in baseball than Aaron Judge. And his numbers show it just because of how much they've skyrocketed since. I mean, to start the year, he was getting close to like the 240, 260, 50 range, and now he's back to a 302 batting average. I mean, that's not the best stat to look at when trying to measure a guy's talent and everything, but to get that back up going through the season at this point, it's very impressive. I mean, batting a 302, he's getting on base 408. His on base, he's pretty much getting on base every other at bat, which is insane. And in games, he comes in clusters with it. Last night, he got on base 4 times. We talked about last week of the times he went 5 for 5 getting on base. And slugging's at 679, and his OPS is 1,087. That's just insane numbers. He's tearing the cover off the baseball.
And guess what? That's with 10 missed games, basically, or 9 missed games compared to some of the league leaders categories. You know, to that point, Judge, home runs, tied with Matt Olson, Jorge Soler, and Max Muncy. He is 3 behind Alonso.
17.
Alonso has played 54. Soler has played 52. Olson has played 54. Muncy has played 49. Mr. Aaron Judge has played 45 games.
Oh, but he's right around him. I mean, it's
impressive.
The home runs have just been coming in bunches too. I mean, he started the season, I think, with 28 multi-home run games, or maybe even 27. He's at 31 now for his career. And last night, we saw it again. He had 2 home runs in a ballpark that he just loves hitting in. I started the game, I was like, oh, if I had money to gamble on this, I'm throwing definitely 1 home run. He hit 2. And they're both Rockets, actually the other one just made over the fence. But the guy's just a pure hitter. And I think he make his best hitter in the league. Batting for average, batting for power.
I mean, if you want to add to your stats, right? Judge with a lot less games than other players is the league leader in slugging percentage, is the league leader in OPS, and in terms of WAR, he is number 11.
Yeah. So I think that's such a fair thing to give him. But I guess on just the ranks of how the team's doing in general as well, they're winning a lot of games. 7 of their last 10 they've won. Still 16 back, which is so crazy. The Rays are just so good.
Fun fact. Who do you think the major league leader in WAR this season is? I'm actually surprised seeing the top 3. Because the guy personally, the guy
doing good.
The guy I thought would be number 1 isn't even in the top 3.
No. Shit. I had no idea, man. I'm very blanking.
Wander Franco leads Major League Baseball with 3.5 wins above replacement. Number 2 is Marcus Semien.
Yeah, he's having a heck of a year.
Who is having an amazing year.
So with the Rangers.
With the Rangers at 3.2. Ronald Acuna is number 4.
I was going to say Acuna for 1.
That's who I thought was 1.
Yeah.
Number 3 in all of baseball, Bo Bichette at 3.1 wins above replacement. All right, sidebar again. Didn't realize the season this guy was having. He is hitting 338, 11 doubles, a triple, 11 home runs, 37 RBIs with 13 walks and only 37 strikeouts and 2 stolen bases. Good for a 376 OBP, a 537 slugging, a 912 OPS.
It very under the radar. You're not seeing his name pop up on anything.
You have not seen him talked about anywhere.
I'm curious if you still have that list up. Freddie Freeman, where is he on there?
Freddie Freeman?
Is he in the top 10?
Yes, he is number 5 in WAR.
Okay, makes sense. That was going to be my other guess.
Number 6, Kevin Kiermaier.
That's a shock.
This is Ha-Sung Kim is number 12 in all of baseball.
Yeah, with the Pirates.
Yandy Diaz is 10. Matt Chapman's 8. You know what's crazy? Toronto has 3 guys in the top 10 of wins above replacement. And if we look at the standings, they are 10 games out of first place.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Their pitching has let them down like a lot of teams we've talked about. But I guess back on the Yankees real fast just to go. They're 2 more games with Seattle. Nestor's going tonight. And then Clark Schmidt should be tomorrow. Luckily, they don't have to see Luis Castillo. And they just beat up Miller for the Seattle last night, who was like on a tear. Like first 5 career games were insane. And the Yankees just blew him out of the water. But just to talk to guys, I'm curious to see the lineup. Because if you didn't know, it's going to be a later game, so I don't even think during the show the lineup's going to drop. But Anthony Volpe was not in the lineup. IKF started short. Boone's excuse for that was he said IKF's going to have to play shortstop later in the season or at some point, so we just got to get him reps. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be now like a split job because give it to IKF, he's been playing good baseball his past 10 games. I mean, he had 2 hits last night. In the last 10, his average is above 300. He's got 3 homers, a couple extra base hits in there too, past the 3 homers. So I'm curious to see where that keeps going if IKF keeps seeing more action at short. I'm curious to see how Yankees fans are going to take that as well.
So this is a good point because I've ranted about this with the Mets. You know, as much as I get annoyed, Brett Beatty is getting consistent at bats. He is playing basically every day for the most part, aside from the occasional lefty and Buck Showalter decides to play. Like tonight, Eduardo Escobar at third base. He'll probably get a pinch hit at bat later in the game. He's playing basically every day. Francisco Alvarez has gotten to the point where he's playing every day. And you're starting to see Vientos play a lot more because guess what? These young kids, they're great for the Mets. They're better than Daniel Vogelbach, Mark Hanna, Tommy Pham. These guys are better. My only thing, and this is really the problem that I was having with Alvarez a few weeks ago and Vientos, you don't want to stun their development. You don't want to have these guys up here. And then all of a sudden, you start splitting reps. And now they're not playing every day. And now they're not able to get their feet underneath them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Anthony Volpe, yes, he's been playing every single day. And okay, he's not an immediate superstar. Guess what? Mike Trout wasn't an immediate superstar when he got called up. My fear when it comes to Volpe is because the Yankees are so win now, in a sense of very similar to the Mets, but I feel like even more pressure in a sense because it's like, oh, it's the Yankees, like, and Boone might be coaching for his quote unquote job, so to say, whereas Showalter might not. Are you worried in a sense that Volpe's development might get stunted? Are you worried in a sense of now where he's in the lineup, out of the lineup, in the lineup, moving all around, that he can't get his feet underneath him, and that could impact his growth and development as a player? Because we've seen this time and time again. This is not a new thing.
No, when you're on the topic, I mean, I think a great way to compare this right now could be a Jared Kelenic. We saw him the first 3 seasons of his career, and it was poor. Very
Not
bad
poor,
numbers.
brutal.
Like below, like all those expectations just thrown in the garbage with this guy. And now, though, this is his fourth season. He's pulling up great numbers. He's in the fourth spot for the Mariners, and he's proving that he can be a great talent in the league.
And he's still 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's not like it was never over for him.
He did get a lot of chances, though. It seemed like that way. And he got sent down a couple times, sent back up. But to the point of that is it's so hard, the transition from minor leagues to the MLB, especially at a guy that's so young, so much hype around him. I'm not saying it's over for the kid at all, not even close. But if it gets to the point where he's going to have to split time, you know what? That's what you got to do. If you're not performing, hey, we talked about this last week. You have to earn that job. You have to earn it. And if you're not playing like you're earning it, like he's got his numbers. I don't have him up.
I'm glad you said that. I'm pulling them up right now.
At a high 1 batting average, a on base percentage, which is probably maybe a high 2, low 3.
So I'm gonna be honest with you, man. These numbers, they're not great. They're not great.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Not in the slightest. So in 192 at bats this year, he has 38 hits. He has 7 home runs, which that's not a bad number. But this is where you start to get into some of the rougher stuff, right? He is hitting 198 with an on-base percentage of 279. He is slugging 354, 633 OPS, 75 OPS plus, not great. You want to look into some of the advanced stats, right? He has a walk rate of 9.8. This is not great though. A strikeout rate of over 30%.
Yeah, that's especially for a guy that was your one hitter for a while.
His exit velo 88.9. Hard hit percentage under 50% at 44.5. Ground ball rate almost at 40%. If you're really, really, really looking at it, you're potentially looking at a guy that might have needed and unfortunately might need more time to develop. And that's okay. What is he, 20, 22 years old?
22. Yeah.
That's okay.
Maybe
he needs to refine his craft in the minors for a little bit. That's not the end of the world. But when it comes to it, it's that nuanced take. At the end, you want Volpe to be the guy.
Yes.
But at the same time, the Yankees have to win. The Yankees have to compete. And crazily enough, if IKF is your best chance right now, you might have to go with that.
Give him his opportunity, for sure. No.
The only issue I have is how Yankees fans are going to perceive it, in the sense of they might already see him as a failure. And we're talking like the minuscule, vocal minority portion of the fan base.
Yeah.
Talking like, oh, he came up, he didn't succeed, he's done. He's not going to ever be anything. When he struggled, if they start booing him. Because it's very weird in the sense of it doesn't have a huge effect, but it has an effect. We saw it with Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is the perfect example. You could argue that set his career back a few years, and he's finally getting his feet back under him now. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it develops. But you're right in the sense of Kalanick's having a great year, but he took more time to develop.
Yes.
Another example of this, Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo was not this when he was first called up, but year after year after year, he developed. He went from legitimately, as a diehard Mets fan, one of the worst outfielders I've ever seen play a professional baseball game in my life, to probably one of the best center fielders I've seen on the Mets, if not the best center fielder I've seen on the Mets my entire life. That has been that development. He parlayed that into over $100 million deal with the team. Development is not linear. There is not just a straight line. There is not an upward curve or an upward straight line to development. It can have bumps, zigzags, go back, forward, back, and then back, forward again. It's not that simple. It's never that simple. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to with Volpe. If that's your main issue with the team, I think you're in a pretty good spot.
No, for sure. And especially, too, if the Yankees keep winning, fans aren't going to have issues. It's when the losses start to pile up. And you know what? It raises the question again. You brought up something about booing. I'm curious to see. Haven't seen it yet. Who are the Yankees fans going to pick on? Who's the next guy that's going to get booed? And curious to see, because no one's been playing really that rough from what I've been watching. We do have some guys coming back, though. One, a prime guy who could possibly be booed, and that's Josh Donaldson. He's finally going to be.
I mean, I was going to say, are they going to turn on Volpe? I don't think
they better not. I don't think they would. They're bad, but I don't think they're that bad.
New York fans can be crazy. We've seen that firsthand.
I mean, just with that news, though, like Rodon had his first bullpen the other day through 20 pitches. He said he was throwing high velocity or high intensity, but the trainers and everyone was like, don't do that. So we'll see really how well he was. Donaldson should be back this weekend. Bader just got hurt, if you didn't see that. It was a little tweak run to first base. Hopefully, Boone said it's either he's going to miss a few games or just have a short stint on the IL, but he's been very key for us. Stanton should be back next week or the weekend or next week as well. And then Tommy Canley too. They're all down in rehab right now, having their rehab start. So a lot to look forward to for the Yankees, especially in this good time.
Canley's going to be a gigantic addition.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially that bullpen, which has already been so good.
Canley might be their closer.
Yeah, right. Currently, yeah.
Yeah. But that brings us to the last part before we do our City That Never Sleeps show parlay of the week. I can't talk today. That's okay. Looking at the rest of their schedule, they got Mariners tonight, Mariners tomorrow, and then a weekend series with the Dodgers before we get to our next episode, which then we'll get into those series. I'll start off so I can give you the final word on the Yankees. I think the way that they've been playing and the way the Mariners have been playing, which one of my bigger disappointments this year, even though they're still 2 games above 500, I think they sweep. I think they take care of business. I think they either sweep or take 2 or 3 from Seattle. And honestly, I'll put the gauntlet down here. I think they sweep the Dodgers.
Wow.
I think the Yankees. Well, I think the Yankees are going to go on a roll. Like you said, they're getting guys back. They're getting healthier. Even if they don't have Bader, I think adding Stanton back to that lineup to protect Judge, who's on fire, might allow Stanton to catch a hot streak. And we know what a Stanton hot streak looks like. That performance is one of the best in the major leagues.
Yeah.
You know, if you get some other production from the offense, like Gleyber Torres has been showing this year, right? If you get pitching, you obviously need Garrett Cole to step it back up again, 1,000%. But if you start getting Severino looking into form, if you start getting Clark Schmidt to just give you quality starts, not asking him to be an ace, but quality starts, and then you start bridging that gap to when Rodon's back, to when you get Canley back for that bullpen. The Yankees are going to be in excellent shape. And, you know, I really think they have a great shot to beat the Dodgers all 3 games. I truly do. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I'll toss it to you now. What do you think of the Yankees' upcoming games?
Yeah, I agree with you that I think they could easily they should sweep the Mariners for sure. So win the next 2. And then going to LA, I could see them winning 2 for sure. I would expect 2. But a sweep would also be amazing. I mean, on that road trip out west, you got to take as much as you can. They love playing out west, though. I don't know what it is, especially like a guy like Aaron Judge, man. And that in Seattle.
He's from the West Coast.
He likes it out there.
You're asking why he loves the West Coast. He's home, man. He's in his old stomping grounds.
He is enjoying it though, but no, I expect them to win 5 of their next 6 or 4 of their next 5 because they just already started. But no, I guess to end baseball, I just had something that has nothing to do with New York baseball. But did you see? Actually, this guy was in New York for a long time. So you saw Cedric Mullins got hurt, right? Or if you didn't say, you know who they're looking at for their center fielder?
Aaron Hicks.
Aaron Hicks.
What's going to be hilarious is the Orioles are going to sign Hicks, and he's going to play the Yankees, and he's going to single-handedly win them the series because that's just what happens. That's what happens in these situations.
No,
quick standings update before we get into our parlay of the day. Braves are in first place in the NL East, followed by the Marlins, Mets, Phillies, and Nationals. Somehow the Nationals are not double-digit games out of first. Oh, what's up?
Did you see? That was weird timing. The Orioles just signed Hicks.
They did?
Yeah, right when I said that. That's hilarious.
I mean, it's been rumored that it was going to happen all day.
That's funny timing, though.
Oh, amazing timing. So the Nationals, ironically, are not double-digit games out of first place. Our quote that we're going to keep using on the show is the entire NL is terrible and no team is good yet. Because, like, to this point, the Atlanta Braves split a series with the Philadelphia Phillies. And they lost the game to, at that time, the 10-win, not more than that, the 10-win Oakland A's. So, yes, no team is good in the NL. I will stand by that. NL Central. Brewers lead the division at 28-25, followed by the Pirates, 2 games out and 2 games under 500. The Cardinals are back in the cellar, 5.5 games out of first place. Both Centrals are absolutely terrible this year. NL West, Diamondbacks are 1.5 out. Giants are 4.5, followed by the Padres at 8 and the Rockies at 9. Padres knocking on the door of that last place spot in the standings currently. That's a discussion I want to get to next week after another week. And once we're in June, which that's crazy, we're almost in June, I really want to talk about the most disappointing teams in baseball. Because I feel like June's a great point to discuss that. Get a week past Memorial Day and then really dive deep into that. In the AL, you have the incredible Rays, really the incredible AL East. The entire division's above 500. Orioles are 34-20, 4 games out. Yankees are 33-23, 6 games out. Red Sox 28-25, 9.5 out. And Blue Jays are 20-26 and are 10 out. Basically, you're going to have 3 of those teams as wild cards, in my opinion. I don't know what ones yet, but 3 of those will be wild cards. AL Central is horrible. Twins are 28-26 in first, followed by the Tigers, then the Guardians, White Sox, Royals, not giving that division any time of day. And then the AL West, pretty good. Rangers are 34-19, 3-game lead on the Astros, and a 6-game lead basically on the Angels and Mariners. Then you have the A's who are 24 out at 11-45. Yeah, crazy standings, man. Been a very, very weird MLB season so far.
I like it, though. I like when it's different.
And that makes betting that much harder. So, we did not do well on last week's parlay. So, if I want to pull it up, which I will, because we are transparent on this week's show. You know what? I think... What was last week's date? Was it?
I have it right here.
Okay. Was it the 23rd?
Yes, 23rd.
Okay.
Do you want me to say one? Yeah.
We got one pick right.
And the Rays actually lost by 19 runs.
The good old jinx, as we would like to call it. I actually made a 5-leg parlay on the 25th, where the only thing I got wrong was the under in the Mets Cubs game. So that was fun. That was very fun. So that brings us to today, my friend.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start off, and what are we thinking?
I liked seeing we had high hopes for the Yankees. Yankees money line is plus, so I'm a fan of that.
Yankees money line?
Yep.
What is Nestor Cortes versus Logan Gilbert. Interesting. That one could blow up in our face.
We watched Nestor's last start too, live.
Yeah, and the wheels kind of fell off after like the 5th inning. that was a fun time. I'm gonna go with the next one. I want redemption. I'm taking Rays minus 1.5 over the Chicago Cubs. Shane McClanahan's on the mound. I'm expecting him to deal tonight. If he doesn't, I'm not betting on the Rays again this season. That's a lie. But why don't you take care of our next pick?
Yeah, I got it. Let's see what we got. Dun, dun, dun. And Aaron Hicks MVP. Just parlay that for later. Yeah. No, we'll go. I like. Oh, you got their son on the Mets Phillies.
I will. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Oh, give me Cardinals Royals over.
That's a very interesting one. Oh, Mikolas versus Greinke. We're going to go over 9 in that game. That now brings us to my second to last pick, because we'll make it a little bit bigger this week. You know, Memorial Day weekend. Got to give the crowd some good content. We got Senga on the mound. I talked about how confident I am in Senga. Suarez has basically a 10 ERA. I'm going to go with Mets minus 1.5. I'm confident in the Mets winning this first game in the series. And that brings us to your last pick. So what do you got?
It was, sorry, just writing it down. Rangers money line.
Rangers tonight play we're looking if they're on the West Coast. They are not.
No, they're playing I just saw it.
They are playing the Detroit Tigers. I like that pick a lot.
Yes.
And for my last pick, going to go with the Gonna go with the under in the Twins Astros game. Joe Ryan versus Brandon Nimmo. Cool. So, with all those picks, we have odds of 6,564. $2 on that wins $131. We're going to do that.
Yeah, go for
it. That would be a great win for us if we hit on that. Absolute great win. But if we don't, this is a fun way to involve betting with the aspects of MLB. Brings up more teams in conversation, what we think about them on a given basis. As we always say, stay tuned for next week when we go over even more MLB talk, where the Mets are at, where the Yankees are at. And like I promised, next week, I'm going to go over some of the more disappointing teams in baseball. That could involve the Mets. That can involve the Phillies. It will involve the Padres unless they turn it around. It can involve both of those teams that we mentioned before, San Diego. That's going to be a fun conversation. But on that note, it's time to move forward and talk about basketball. But before we do, I want to remind you guys that Creative Window Design Center is located in Ocean City, New Jersey. It is serving New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida. They are fully authorized Hunter Douglas dealer. Contact Jeff at 609-226-0391 for a free consultation. Also, All Campus is giving 20% off everything in their store, including hats and shirts to all their subscribers. Make sure to get in on that deal. It is NBA talk. And on that note, it's time to bring in our NBA betting savant himself, Evan Lawler. Evan, how are we doing today?
What's up, gents? What's up?
Hey.
So, it is time to talk about the series that went 7, but shouldn't have went 7, but did go 7 because let's face it, this could have lasting ramifications on the NBA, impact the Knicks, impact the rest of the teams in the league. So without further ado, it's time to talk about how the Miami Heat made things way too difficult for themselves, but still won this series in 7. Evan, you're our resident basketball betting expert. What'd you think of last night's game?
The Heat, man, everything clicked for them. Everything they wanted to go their way went their way. I'm happy to see that their depth actually stepped up and, played their butts off, and that's what's awesome. Jimmy Butler, he did his thing last night as well. But, I'm very happy to see that they all their guys that they rely on stepped up, and, the Celtics just didn't.
Yeah, it was a very interesting game because it went back to what we saw in the first 3 games of this series. The Miami role players stepping up. Jimmy Butler scoring when needed, but more importantly, and I feel like this is the topic of conversation that's going to be the most interesting as we head into the offseason, the Celtics stars really did not show up for the most part. And yes, Jason Tatum gets hurt on the first play of the game, hurts his ankle. But he still didn't have a great game. They still didn't really feed him the ball. Jaylen Brown had 8+ turnovers. Marcus Smart really didn't have a good showing. Derek White tried to do what he can, but Derek White is a role player for a reason. Robert Williams didn't have a great game. So, Toomey, I'll toss it to you now about this. In watching this Celtics team, in watching them get down 3-0, battle back, but still lose the series and still really show a lot of the same issues that were plaguing them, what do you think went wrong? And what do you think this really means for their roster going forward?
Well, just simply, they weren't hitting their shots. They created a lot of opportunities, and they just were not hitting them. And even in the first quarter, they were talking about, like, Eric Spoelstra came on after, is like, they're getting too many offensive boards and they're getting too many open shots with that. It didn't hurt them in the first quarter, but then it got to the point where they were still pretty much getting those opportunities and weren't hitting their shots. And we noticed that at the end of the Lakers series too with the Nuggets. The Lakers just weren't hitting their shots, and the Nuggets were. Same thing we saw here. Heat did everything they had to do. Caleb Martin, kudos to him. He had a hell of a performance, and he's turned out to be one hell of a talent for the Miami Heat. And now for the future, because I think that's just the big discussion now, the offseason. And the one guy I'm pointing my finger at is Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum is going to be a Celtic. He's going to get paid. We know that. He's one of the top players in the league. But Jaylen Brown, I just saw on the TV, he's up for a $295 million extension. After seeing that Game 7 performance, 19 points on 8 of 23 shooting, 8 turnovers, like you said, would you give him $295 million?
I'll read you some stats that Jaylen Brown had. And these are some quick stats. If you guys have any more, feel free to add. Jaylen Brown, and this is a comparison to Caleb Martin this past series. Caleb Martin, 19.3 points per game, 60% field goal percentage, 49 from 3, 88% free throw shooter. Cool. Jaylen Brown, 19 per game, okay, 42% from the field, 16% from beyond the arc, and a 67% basically free throw shooting percentage. To your point, and we've talked about this here on the show, and we'll get into this a little bit after we talk about Boston and then basically talk about the finals. This was a guy I've wanted the Knicks to target. This is a guy I wanted the Knicks to target because I know what that ceiling is. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him, but paying him $295, that's a proposition where you're basically saying, yeah, you're the dude. You got to be the superstar. And I'm sorry, this series, he basically showed he's not ready for that role yet. He's fine in the Robin role, the quote unquote number 2 role. But you can't be expected to be paid like a superstar if you play like that.
I mean, we saw in the finals when they were in it, and he played like the dude. He did. And that's when we saw Tatum. He did not really play like that quote-unquote superstar. But, I mean, having that performance, and he's taken a lot more shots than Caleb Martin. A lot more.
Yeah.
And is atrocious numbers. I mean, in the biggest game of the season right there, and yes, they had a great comeback and all, but it doesn't matter after not winning.
I think something that also goes into it, and I'll toss to Evan after this. I think what also goes into it is what's Missoula running? What are the plays? What's the offensive set? Because a lot of the time it didn't really look like much of anything was happening on offense. Really didn't look like there was like that true offensive set, that true way to attack the zone. Obviously, the best way to attack the zone is by shooting the three. But if it's just standard 3 points, you're just asking to be closed out on easily. Also, it's like, what are the rest of the guys on the team doing? Like who's the offense supposed to run through? What's his health at? Like there's other factors that go into it, but just from like that surface level, the narratives that are going to be shaped around Brown are going to be nasty because he's still a great player.
Oh, yeah.
But he is just, it sucks, but that's the way sports work. What have you done for me lately? And he did not have a good series, really, in the slightest. So, Evan, I'll toss to you the Jaylen Brown discourse. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man. I guess, lights were too bright for him, I guess. I stopped betting on him after, I think, game 1 or game 2. Probably game 2. I just knew he just can't shoot, I guess, in big time. And it's sad that, you got guys like Marcus Smart that had to step up. You had guys Derek White who had to step up. And those are guys that you shouldn't really be relying on to get you those big buckets and play huge in those huge games. Obviously, it sucks that Jason Tatum got hurt first play. That's just how it is. But I don't want to hear the excuses about that because we, as Knicks fans, have seen the injuries and have seen guys play through it. They'll sit at the 3-point line, get open in the corner, figure it out. And, it just sucks that he just didn't really pick it up. And, the shooting is like the biggest thing I liked about him, especially coming to the Knicks, and now not being able to pick it up when it mattered the most, especially from the free throw line. That sucks.
Yeah, it's very interesting because what is Jaylen Brown supposed to bring in? 3-point shooting, very good scoring overall, and pretty good defense. The defense, I guess you could argue was there, but it definitely wasn't there to the level you expect. And the shooting was basically non-existent this series. And this against a Miami team. And you want to think about it in a Knicks perspective, right? Not only would you have to give up the majority of your young assets, probably a good chunk of your draft picks, but you also would have to sign the guy to a type of deal where you're basically making him the 1B to Jalen Brunson's 1A. So now, if you're looking at it, are you willing to part with those assets? That's the question. And to me, I'll toss it to you with that. If you're a team, not even having to be the Knicks, a Portland Trailblazers, who have Anthony Simons, the number 3 overall pick, Shady and Sharp, that could go back in a trade. If you're a team like, you could even argue the Charlotte Hornets, the San Antonio Spurs, if you're one of these teams where, maybe even the Houston Rockets, if they add James Harden, if you're one of these teams that wants to add a star level player, that wants to elevate and go to that next level, is Jaylen Brown still that guy that you're targeting? Or now, after seeing how he performs on that biggest stage, on that stage where it's win or go home, you win, you're in the finals, are you still making that deal, or are you more hesitant now?
I just think how the NBA works, I don't think he's going to get paid by someone. And I think a bunch of NBA execs would love to get their hands on Jaylen Brown. Because like we said before, he's still a great talent in the league. And I'm even if I was the Celtics too, I don't even know if they're really going to move on from him, just because that duo has just been together for so long, and they've gotten them to the finals. I mean, they made the finals. They almost made it to this year. They had a great comeback. But someone would gladly give money to Jaylen Brown. I think he's going to get paid. That's just how the NBA works. And I would rather go a different route. I would, just because I don't give that. That's just so much money. I don't know how these guys make so much money. It's absurd.
So, Evan, I'll toss to you first. Same question I asked Toomey. Has your perspective on a team like the Knicks, like the Hornets, like the Blazers trading for Jaylen Brown, would you still be on board for that, or does this performance give you more pause?
I'm not gonna lie, I'd still be on board. Obviously, some guys just don't, play well. It happens. We're all human at the end of the day. He still put up good numbers, no matter if you think about it, even though the turnovers suck, but he still did what he had to do in that game to try to keep them in it. Obviously, throughout the series, his shooting was not the best, but there's not a lot you could really do about that. I wouldn't, be opposed to still getting him. Obviously, he's a great, player. He's an all-star. He's an all-NBA guy. He's a guy you want on your team. I just think that, they back against the wall. I think he just got, in his own head and a little nervous, and that's what happens, in the playoffs, especially when you're playing a dominant team like Miami. And, I just think that he got caught up in it, but I definitely would not be opposed to still getting him. He's still a hell of a player.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also goes into, I think from my perspective, I'm definitely still on board if I'm a New York Knicks, where, it also goes into the equation. What are you giving up? What's the type of money he is asking for in the extension? If you're the Knicks, you're more comfortable giving that out because you're probably trading a good chunk of salary off your roster if you're getting a Jaylen Brown. RJ Barrett's probably going back in that deal. How are you mix and matching the different aspects? What picks are you giving up? But like Evan said, like Toomey said, at the end of the day, he's still an all-NBA type player. The only thing is now, do the Celtics move him? Because, yes, he is up for the Supermax, almost close to a $300 million contract. The CBA is changing in the NBA. I don't know if you guys have read about this, but the CBA is changing in the sense of there's now going to be a second level to, I think it's the luxury tax. And it is going to be a lot harder for teams to be able to afford 2 Supermax extensions. This changes depending on whether or not it's the team that drafted the player, because with bird rights and all the fun things that go into NBA contracts. But at the end of the day, from what I've read up on, it's really to make the NBA more competitive, to make teams able to retain their stars, but not give teams like the Warriors in the past the ability to sign everybody to these max type deals. My only thing, and this is on the heels of rumors coming out that Boston wants to retain Brown, is going to offer him the max extension. Do you think it's smart, no pun intended, for the Celtics to give out 2 giant extensions, one to Brown and then another one to Tatum when he's eligible in, I think, 2024, which would be after next season?
And the Brown decision's got to come now. I mean, that's this offseason. Yeah. It's going to happen either way. Oh, God. I mean, then that means you're just banking on them.
That's exactly.
If you're at the front office, it's either yes or no. Like, are these guys going to win us a championship or not? And the Celtics are in desperate need of a championship right now. They really are. More so than maybe the Knicks are the only other team more desperate for a championship, I think, just from how their past has gone for the Celtics now.
I'd say the Clippers too.
It's so tough because you're locking yourself in forever. These guys are not, and they've proved that they can get you to the point, and they've proved that they're 2 of the top players in the league. Tatum for sure. Tatum's staying. Tatum's going to be their guy forever. But is Brown the number 2 that he needs? I guess that's why I'm not putting a job as a GM, because I'd ship him away. I would. I'd try and find it.
You would? Okay.
I would. 100%.
So,
yeah.
Extension off that then. What's the team you're looking to trade him to, and what's the package you're looking for?
Oh, I'm looking for all of it. If I think of a team, I mean, the Knicks, he'd look cool in the Knicks. I'm not even a Knicks fan. I think Brunson, Brown, Randall. You got still guys like Mitchell Robinson down there. That would be a hell of a team. And I think that'd put them front runners in the East right there off of that. Teams after that, I think the teams have to be in contention to want him. I don't think he's going to be able to carry a team by himself.
Portland's the second option for me. Or probably the first, and then the Knicks.
Finally give Lillard a solid, like
a true running mate that he hasn't had since what, Aldridge in like his first few years.
Would you say McCollum? McCollum was good.
Brown is miles better than McCollum.
Yes, for sure.
Maybe not in terms of like pure scoring, but everything else, overall player, miles better. Evan, I'll toss it to you. What are you doing if you're the Celtics?
I'm packing him up, man, and I'm gonna trade him. But I'm gonna work on, I want to say, trying to get a young big, Al Horford. I mean, he's good, but you need it's a league that, you need a young big guy who's going to, give you production. What was his name? Williams. I want to say Williams was coming off the bench. He was playing very well. I liked him a lot, actually, in the series. He played very well. Even to get like a really good, I mean, Marcus Smart's a good point guard, but just to get something to, he's deadly some nights and other nights he doesn't do anything. And you need a guy, I think you package up and try to get two, mid-level to like on the rise young guys to put around Tatum. And then you got your sixth man of the year here. What did he do this series? Nothing. He was awful. It was actually awful. You need the bench. You need a better bench. You need one more bench guy. You need to look at your sixth man of the year and be like, hey, it's another guy we need to look at that might, he choked. He did not play well at all. And that makes me question the whole thing between him and Quickley. Quickley didn't play that well, but he didn't play this bad in the playoffs, I'll tell you that. And it's just it's very interesting, but I would definitely trade him and try to get, a couple different like aspects or assets to put around Tatum and kind of build a little bit. You've been to Eastern Conference Finals how many years in a row and you haven't done anything? I think it's time to sit back, take a step back for a year or two, build up your guys, get some young guys to, get into the whole playbook and to really understand what the team's about and then move from there. Because there's only so much longer you can really keep on doing this.
So I'm completely on board with what you two both said. So to Toomey's point, it's 1,000% right. You sign Brown and Tatum to these extensions, that's your core. That's your core for years to come. You don't have much roster flexibility, if any at all, to make any other moves to shore up your depth. The majority of your team's salary is going towards Tatum and Brown. And then to Evan's point, there are three teams I'm looking at right off the bat if I'm Boston in terms of fitting the needs that were presented, right? So number one, the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte Hornets have the number 2 pick in the draft. So what does that do if you're the Boston Celtics? Well, despite all the off the court stuff, you have the opportunity to add a guy like Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller would be a very good addition, really kind of bring that scoring three that gives you defense, regarded as one of the best players in the country, would bring a different look to the Celtics. Or, guess what? You draft your point guard of the future, Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson sitting right there, a running mate with Tatum. Scoot would bring everything that the Celtics need from that position and now allows you to maybe transition Marcus Smart to the 2 guard or maybe to a more off-ball role as a 6-man. Gives you more depth as a roster. Another guy I could see going in that trade, PJ Washington. What does that give you if you're Boston? Gives you a nice 4 that can shoot a little bit. Gives you a nice tandem with Robert Williams, where now maybe you don't need to bring back Al Horford, and that money can go towards something else in free agency or a different type of trade package. The second team I'm looking at, the Portland Trailblazers. Number 3 overall pick, Anthony Simons, Shady and Sharp. What does that package at a baseline do? The number 3 pick, it's the same discussion. Miller, Henderson. Maybe you look at a guy like Amon or Oswar Thompson. This draft class is pretty good. This draft class has a lot of great players. Boston could definitely find a key contributor at 2 or 3. But this trade not only gives you your starting point guard, but now extends your bench. Shady and Sharp is that guy you can develop to come off the bench right away, but maybe he's your starting point guard. Anthony Simons can give you a nice shooting guard and just great shooting in general to now where Tatum isn't completely keyed in on as a player, shooting-wise. You have a more consistent shooter next to him. Guess what? Tatum's going to be even better. And then the third team is definitely the Knicks, because this is more of looking at the future. You're getting a lot of future Knicks picks. And let's face it, as much of a Knicks fan as I am, and as Evan is, they have not been that consistent. They missed the playoffs last season after making it 2021. So if you want to take that shot, maybe some of those picks are high. Maybe you're getting a Brooklyn Nets type deal. I don't personally think that, but Boston could have that opinion. You could be getting a guy in Immanuel Quickley that could give you great value off the bench or starting. You could be getting a guy in Obi Toppin that gives you good minutes at the 4. Hell, maybe you're getting an RJ Barrett or Julius Randle in that deal. Julius Randle, if he's not the number one guy in Boston, I think he'd fit in just fine. But like, just from a baseline perspective, those 3 teams, if I'm Boston, that's the type of things I'm looking for. Picks or a high pick in combination with contributors that are going to help the Jason Tatum-led Celtics.
Look at you. Look at you, GM Pokey over here. No, they all make sense. And I think with the Hornets, like if you're trading one of those early picks, there's more pieces coming as well. It's not just straight up Brown for.
No.
Yeah, no. Like they're getting. Like, is there another name on the Hornets? Because I know you brought up the second pick, but is there someone else that you'd want in that package if you were the GM?
Terry Rozier.
Right back.
But no, like because from the Hornets side of things, that you're getting LaMelo Ball his running mate.
Yeah.
You're creating that tandem in the East. Now, what the rest of that roster looks like, I could not tell you. But you're that just from a start, you're giving Jaylen Brown that running mate, essentially.
And I really think he'd fit well in New York.
He would, because he would bring that gritty mentality that Thibodeau likes a lot.
Him and Bronson too?
Yeah.
That'd be solid. Truly would be.
Yeah, I'm just that's the type of thought process I'm looking at with the Boston Celtics in terms of that. They're not moving off Tatum. That's something that is just simply not going to happen. If it does happen, I will be floored personally.
Yeah,
but that I think moves us to an NBA Finals preview, because the national media might not talk about this NBA Finals, but we're going to. So I'll toss it to you guys, whichever one of you guys wants to start. Nuggets, Heat. I have my thoughts on what type of series this is going to be, but I'm very interested to hear how you guys think these two teams stack up with each other.
I think, just from watching these teams, they're 2 fun teams to watch, but I think the Nuggets are going to destroy the Heat. I mean, look at the big man battle. Bam can't guard him. Jokic, you can't guard him, and that's what it's going to come down to. Jokic is going to put up 50 a night on Bam, and Bam's not going to. And Bam had trouble this series against the Celtics. He's going to have a lot of trouble, I think, against the Nuggets, and I think it's just going to come down to the Nuggets playing that pick and roll with Murray and Jokic, and I think it's going to be an awesome 3-point battle though from both teams. I think it's going to be beyond the arc. It's going to be a fun game to watch, but I got a Nuggets like in 5 at 6 at the most if the Heat really battle, but it's just Jokic just going to. I just don't think Bam can guard him. I don't think Bam's going to do a very good job. He struggled a lot, and I think he's going to struggle even more.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, I just feel No, really, it's like Jokic. Who we were talking about this last week? Who can cover Jokic? And I don't think Bam is the one that can. Everyone, I want to pose a question to you two because I just saw it come across my screen here. If you had to pick for the most impressive playoff run right now, are you going with Jimmy Butler or Jokic?
Can I add a third option?
Go for it, yeah.
Caleb Martin.
Caleb Martin can be.
I would add on to. I would go Jokic. I mean, Jimmy Butler, if we're going to be real here, hasn't really been that good since the Milwaukee series. He didn't really play good against the Knicks. He didn't play really that well this series. You know, he catches heat at the right time in each game, and that's it. He's not very consistent.
Jimmy Butler's been more clutch than he has been a consistent performer. That's what I would give him. I'd say Jokic has been the more consistent guy, has had a better playoff run.
Every night.
Yeah, Jokic has had the better run. Butler's been more, I'd say, quote unquote, vital to his team's success in the clutch moments, solely because the Nuggets haven't had to do that in many games.
No, really. And two, like, they were a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Nuggets were a 1 seed. Heat were an 8. So I guess storybook would be the Heat, but no, Jokic is just, I thought it was Jokic too. And when it goes to the other guys too, like, there's so many weapons on that Nugget squad. Like, you cannot leave anyone open.
No, and you can't.
Against the Celtics, you'd be like, oh, leave Jaylen Brown. We don't have to, like, do too much with him because he's not hitting anything. You could foul him too, and he's shooting like LeBron at the free throw line. Like, I don't know, man. The Nuggets are just too good. I think the Nuggets, just like Evan, I think the Heat maybe take game 1, but then the Nuggets just roll them over the rest of the series.
So starting off, Evan must have been in my house and didn't know it. Or I didn't know it because I literally said that verbatim, that I think Jokic is going to score 50 a game. Mm-hmm. But it's the right point. Bam was struggling against Al Horford and Robert Williams. And as good as they have been on defense and on offense, there are no Jokic. Jokic was dominating Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a much better defender than Bam Adebayo by a considerable margin. So it becomes down to, and you can toss out the narratives. Oh, are the Nuggets going to be rusty after not playing for 10 days? Is it better to play like Miami is right after a series into the next one as opposed to rest? Throw that all out the window in terms of an actual series. For the Heat, can they outshoot Denver and basically outplay Jokic dominating them on defense? I don't think so. Also, that Miami patented zone defense, they're going to be in hell all night, every game, if the Nuggets players are hitting their threes. Because that's how Miami put a stop to the Knicks, and that's how Miami put a stop to Boston. They ran that zone defense. Like you said to me, Denver has a ton of shooters. What is the main way to beat a zone defense? Hitting your 3-point shots. Also, Miami does not have the biggest team, and Denver has a pretty big roster. Jamal Murray is tall. Michael Porter Jr. is tall. Nikola Jokic is tall. God forbid if Caleb Martin or Gabe Vincent gets switched on to Jokic and because of the zone and has to close out. Jokic might hit like 7 threes in a game if that's the case. So, like, I'm going Nuggets in 5, gentlemen sweep, because I just don't think Miami has the capacities. I don't think they have the capacities to contain Denver. Just from a purely defensive perspective, could they keep up offensively? Sure. But you just played a 7-game series. Jimmy Butler looked like he could barely jump in Game 6 and Game 7. Bam Adebayo looked cooked. You think that's going to fly against Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who has randomly just turned into a top 20 player, top 15 player these playoffs?
He loves the playoffs. He truly does.
I just don't think it's happening. I'm taking Nuggets in 5, and we're rolling from there.
I'm with you. Nuggets 5 or 6. I think they're just going to control the whole series. No offense. Hey, maybe they saw some magic though. They've done nothing but doubt people wrong this whole playoffs, and look where they're at. They're in the NBA Finals. No, they had 150 to 1 odds to make the finals or win the finals. That's crazy.
Hey, if
Too bad we didn't bet on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Hey, if the Heat are the ones to put a stop to Jokic and Denver, good for them. I just don't see from a purely like basketball perspective what I've seen these playoffs that's going to be the case. But before we move on from basketball talk, want to get some Knicks and I guess Lakers talk in real quick. In terms of the offseason, in terms of, what you want to see, we'll get more in depth with offseason conversation once we actually get there. But if I were to ask you guys right off the bat, what's one move that you want to see, I got in myself and Evan's case, the Knicks make, and in your case, Toomey, the Lakers, what's one move that you think the team needs to make? What would that be and why?
We talked about this, Pope. I want a wing shooter. That's all I want. Someone who's going to shoot from beyond the arc and make it, and let Brunson play a little one-on-one and let him get his little ISOs and be the player he was when he was on the Mavericks. And can just, because that's his game. Obviously, he's a fantastic point guard, but, that's his game to get a little ISO, a little one-on-one and to, get in his bag. And I need a guy that, can be, dangerous from the arc. And I think that's what we need.
Toomey, how about you?
I mean, I can't even. It's very simple. Besides getting Reeves and Hachimura back, which we talked about last week, I want LeBron back too as well. I know the retirement discussion. Don't think he's leaving. But if I'm looking just for players to bring in, again, the NBA, it's changed over the past couple of years. We see it. You need 3-point shooting. You really do, especially guys that hit those consistently. And the Lakers' issue, I think, at the end of the playoffs there was not that they couldn't defend Jokic because, again, I don't think anyone can defend Jokic. I think their issue was they weren't hitting their open shots. And just get guys on the perimeter that will sink those shots. And curious to look at who those guys are, maybe the big free agents who resigned. I don't want Kyrie. I don't think so, but I think it'd be cool, I guess, to have him in there. It's just another name, but I don't know. When always the Lakers always start their seasons terrible when they bring in another star and they have something going on like with the Westbrook and like they figure it out at the end of the year when they're like, all right, what's our issue? And then they bring guys in to help that issue. So I'm predicting that they're going to start the season slow again because they're going to bring in guys that just have no purpose on that team and maybe they'll figure it out halfway through the year.
It's a Los Angeles Lakers staple. I think they've done this every year that they've had LeBron. Actually, they've done it even when they didn't have LeBron. Let's be completely honest. For me, I'm going to be boring and kind of keep it very similar to Evan. I just wing defense and shooting. And whether that's in the form of adding a Jaylen Brown, whether that's in the form of a Pascal Siakam, whether that's in the form of maybe, somehow landing an Embiid or you go after like a Kyle Kuzma, whatever form it takes. Add shooting, add perimeter defense. Because you got the interior solved right now with Mitchell Robinson. But you need more wing defense to close out on the three. And you need more shooting to battle with teams like Miami that tend to be very good shooters. So I think we're all on the same wavelength here. We'll be back. I think the finals start this week.
Thursday.
So we'll be back with some basketball recaps. We'll have some of the parlays posted on the Instagram as always. And on that note, it's time to talk real quick about the biggest football news. Because let's be honest here. Jets news, Giants news, basically non-existent at this point. If you want to talk about the Saquon contract for the 1,500th time, go for it. Nothing's changed. If you want to talk about the Quinnen Williams situation, be my guest. My point still stands, and it's probably going to end up being right because it seems that the Jets and Quinnen are closer to the deal. But the biggest news in the NFL landscape was the release, not the trade, the release of DeAndre Hopkins. So this is technically Jets and Giants adjacent news, because this is a guy, in my opinion, that both teams should be looking at. Now, there's another topic involved with this that we will get to real quick after, but the Cardinals ate all 22 plus million dead cap of this contract. They did not get anything in return for DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins signed with Clutch Sports today, and the rumor is he is looking for his money. So, looking at the NFL cap room, the Jets have the sixth highest amount of cap space left at just about $18.275 million. The Giants are at 25 with around 4.6 million in free cap. The other teams that have been linked to him are the Philadelphia Eagles, who currently sit at number 12 with just about 12.7 mil in a cap. The Baltimore Ravens, who are under the Eagles at basically 12.4 million. And the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs, who both sit under 1.7 million in cap. Buffalo is at 1.6. The Chiefs are barely at $1.1 million in cap room. Tossing it to you first, Evan. DeAndre Hopkins, your thoughts on the release and where do you think he goes?
Hey, man, it'd be awesome to get him, but we don't got the money. So if he wants $20-something million, go find it somewhere else. I mean, he's an old guy. You know, how long are you really going to get him realistically? What, a year, maybe two? You got to think of him like the Aaron Rodgers kind of deal here, where how long are you going to get him? How much is he really going to produce for you? And, you know, I mean, I don't even know what his stats were last year, actually. I should look that up on the Cardinals, and that would actually help me out. Then I'll get like a good idea of where he actually should go.
I got him right here if you want him.
Yeah, read him off.
Yeah, he played only 9 games.
This was because of the PED suspension. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. 96 targets, 64 receptions, 717 yards, 3 touchdowns. A lot of that though was without Kyler, I think too, because he did get hurt. So it was a lot of Colt McCoy, and they did have another guy playing quarterback down there too. So they dealt with a lot of issues last year.
I would say then double it if you want to be like with Kyler, double it. I maybe give him 6 to 10 touchdowns and maybe 1,000 yards at most, maybe 1,200, 1,400 at the max. He's still a top guy, but I mean, again, you know, he's been in the league for so long, and I don't know. I don't really know where he could go.
He could be 31 years old coming in next season. I'd give him money. I mean, he's still I don't think you're going to get Houston Texans, obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, or beginning of his career with or his stint with the Cardinals, but
see, you see, the funny part about it is the teams that he wants to go to don't have money, and he wants to be paid. The rumor is he wants somewhere around the Michael Thomas deal, where with incentives he can earn up to $15 million. Okay, fair. Incentives, maybe that base value starts at, let's say, $7 million, $8 million, and you work up to 15 or something along those lines. Cleveland and Philly are obviously teams where rumors, Cleveland has around $7 million in cap. The Eagles have around $12 million in cap, $13 million if you really want to be exact. I don't know if those teams are going to give out that type of money to a receiver right now. Because, you know, would Hopkins be great in Philly? Sure. But, you know, is that going to make Devonta Smith mad because now he's going from the 2 to 3? And how does that, you know, shape the rest of your roster? Maybe Philly doesn't care about that because they're all in an all-in window. Cleveland, I feel like, makes more sense. You then have a top 3 tandem of Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Elijah Moore. I feel like that would make a lot of sense. does Hopkins want to go to Cleveland? Yeah, he had all these listed demands, stable organization, all that. Deshaun Watson also didn't have a great year. Saw a stat that he was barely better than Zach Wilson in, I think it was EPA or something along those lines. Watson did not have a good season in the time that he played. Ironically, I do think the Jets, if they really pursue him, and that's the question, would be able to give Hopkins the best of both worlds. The Jets, like we looked at, are top 10 in cap room. They are just outside the top 5. They cut Corey Davis. That frees up another $10 million in cap. Just like that. At this point, there'll probably be a post-June 1 designation. Maybe the cap number is even higher. He'd be playing with Aaron Rodgers. He would be on a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. And even outside of that, the contract would make sense because he would fit into the Aaron Rodgers window. A 2-3 year deal would fit into the window of we're going all in. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. It's not like they're trying to develop Zach Wilson. It's not like they just drafted a rookie and they need the money and the cap to go after guys to surround that rookie quarterback. No, you just traded for the guy. He's getting paid a lot of money. Why not go all in on offense? You didn't pay Odell Beckham, so you have the opportunity with Hopkins now. This would give Garrett Wilson an opportunity to not be double covered because now teams have to worry about Hopkins and Wilson. In addition to that, Allen Lazard probably would have a career year because he's getting faced with one-on-ones. That's where he had his best seasons in Green Bay, when he had Devontae Adams to take that pressure off him. You have Hopkins and Garrett Wilson taking pressure off Lazard. Lazard might look like a top 15 receiver when he's honestly not close to that. Your running game opens up. Everything opens up if you add a guy like Hopkins.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't know how realistic it is. Frankly, I don't know where the realistic landing spot is. Because I would say Kansas City, but Kansas City has no money. I would say Buffalo, but Buffalo has no money. So I'm very intrigued to see where he ends up. Obviously, whenever that news breaks, we will bring it to you, both instant reactions on Instagram, Twitter, and on our episode, wherever that news falls, whether it's that week or the following week. The question, though, now, and I want to ask you guys this as avid football watchers, do the Arizona Cardinals have the potential to be the worst NFL team ever in terms of record? Do they have a shot to tie the Detroit Lions? Because I think that
put a bet down. I put a bet down they don't win a game.
I think they do. I honestly think they do.
I don't think they win a game.
It's tough to not win a game.
I don't even think Kyler wants to be there. If I'm the Cardinals, bro, I'm trading Kyler. Just get everyone out, restart. Like it is at this point. Get your picks.
I'm pulling up the Arizona Cardinals depth chart. So at quarterback currently, Kyler Murray most likely isn't playing this year. So what you have at that position is Colt McCoy, Clayton Tune, who was just drafted, and Jeff Driscoll.
Next Tom Brady.
At running back, I'm not convinced James Conner is on this roster with how bad they're tanking. You got Keontae Ingram, Corey Clement, Tyson Williams, and Emari DeMarcado. Your offensive line.
You think there's a team right now that just get tank and just take Caleb Williams?
I'm going to finish reading the depth chart and then I'll answer that for you. Their offensive line is not great. They got Paris Johnson Jr., who I love, but DJ Humphries as a starting left tackle. Uh-oh. Kelvin Beachum as your starting right tackle. Uh-oh. Josh Jones as your backup. Dennis Daly. Julian Davenport. Traore Barada Traore. I've never heard of this dude in my life. Lachavius Simmons. I'm probably butchering these names. Your center is a guy named Hiate Froholt. I feel like I'm reading like a different language right now, by the way. The entire receiving core, by the way, is all taller, or my bad, shorter than 5'10". There is not a receiver on the Cardinals currently that is over 5'10" in the modern NFL. Your starting receivers are Greg Dortch, Rondale Moore, and Marquise Brown.
Hey man, their odds to be the last winless team is plus 480.
I'm taking that.
I'm not gonna lie, and then just the go 0-17, it's plus 1,000 for any team to go 0-17.
Now they have some young pieces I like on the defense. You know, Owen Papo, BJ Ojolari. But
who's their linebacker? Their big linebacker, right?
But Isaiah Simmons is probably going to get traded. I don't see any reason they hold on to him. They can get more picks. It will legitimately shock me to all extent if Budda Baker is on this roster come the regular season.
Dude, and I'm gonna smash every Cardinals thing here. It's worst season record plus 320 for the Arizona Cardinals, bro. Why wouldn't you smash that? Like, what is up with this? I'm sorry.
But you're adding, you were 100% right. There's money to be made off this. And to your point to me, this is shameless tanking. This is this is not even hiding in plain sight. This is nah, we're going for it. And to what a point Evan made that I wanted to bring up, they're going to trade Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not on this roster beyond this year. No way. If they get the number 1 pick, they're drafting Caleb Williams and saying to Kyler, "Hey, we're going to find you a new team." Even if they have to do the Matthew Stafford deal where they include a pick with Kyler just to get that contract off their books. What makes you think Kyler Murray would even stay on this type of roster? Nothing. The dude he basically won everything his entire life. You think he wants to be a part of a rebuild? No way.
Even just look at their schedule. There's no room for them to win a game, it looks like. Actually.
Oh my god, I can't wait to make money off the finals and then just bet on the Cardinals be awful this season. That's great. We're so calm.
Very interesting.
But yeah, it's shameless. It's bad. It's really bad. And there's teams that are bad. The Rams might half the Rams roster might be rookies. But I trust Sean McVay more than Jonathan Gannon by a mile.
Oh yeah, we got a guy who's won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon was probably the reason the Eagles lost the Super Bowl. So it's I'm sorry, a Colt McCoy or Clayton Tune led football team is not winning more than 3 games, let alone a wide receiver room that doesn't have a guy that's taller than 5'10".
It might be worse than the Giants last year, wide receiver room.
What are you trying to do? Run the air raid offense from Texas Tech? Tariq Woolen, if he goes up against Marquise Brown, literally just has to shove him, and he's off his route. The Seahawks cornerbacks are going to have a field day against the Cardinals. Hell, half the NFL, if they play the Cardinals, are going to have a field day. It's just it's bad. I really think it's going to be bad. And that's looking at it now. That's before any injuries or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
So.
Just when we're not good. But I do have a little Jets news.
What's up with that?
I kept hearing a Breece Hall hanging out down the shore. I keep seeing his name coming up at bars down the shore. I'm like,
there is a picture floating around on Twitter of Breece Hall being at DJ's.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yes. I think Evan might have fallen off. So If we get him back, we will add him back. But
We're going to NHL anyway, right?
Move outside. I had to move outside.
All right, he's back. If Evan wants to stay on for hockey talk, he's more than welcome. But we were talking, man. Breece Hall, appearance at DJ's this past weekend. Your thoughts?
Hey, man. Might as well have fun while you're here. I hope you got a short house.
Memorial Day weekend, man. Memorial Day
Hey, man, as
weekend.
long as he's just smart down there. As long as he's smart, doesn't make any stupid mistakes at DJ's, because you can. But, as long as he's smart and, follows the rules, make sure he's not drunk driving, he'll be fine.
Exactly.
I hope he's not on that mosh pit with that knee, though. He better be standing on the outside.
Yeah, bro, this guy just tore his ACL. He's at DJ's? What? This is the franchise y'all believe in? I don't think Saquon's at DJ's. He's at Iron Bar keeping it calm. What a rock.
I have more questions of someone being at Iron Bar, to be fair.
Nah, DJ's is bad, bro. He's got 25 offensive linemen probably surrounding him that don't play football. So that knee is compromised.
Nah, man, he's good. He's good. But do you staying on for hockey, or you getting up? You bouncing?
Go Golden Knights, right? They made it.
Yes, there we go. There we go.
I was rooting for them when they first started the expansion, but if they actually, win it, it'd be awesome for Vegas and for the A's to actually want to move there as well and get that whole thing rolling. That'd be really cool for Vegas.
They love their hockey in Vegas too. They're so big right now, and once we get into it, when we get into it, I'll get into it.
Well, I was gonna say it just because I did a whole article review on Vegas, and it'd just be awesome for them to get a really major, win there for his major sports team, because it's just gonna bring so many teams. I think the next place could be Vegas for a basketball team. So because they do awesome there with everything else. I hate to cut in, but that's my piece. Go Golden Knights.
No, fantastic, man. We'll catch you next week. Thank you for joining us this week, man. We'll see you.
Yeah, I'll see you guys.
Peace.
But yeah, man, that's the one hockey stadium I want to go to.
Yeah, right.
I want to go to a Golden Knights game, truly more than basically any other hockey arena. I want to go to Vegas for a game, and that brings us, as Evan perfectly segued, Golden Knights, Florida Panthers. I wouldn't have predicted that at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't have predicted that at the beginning of the playoffs whatsoever. I mean, just wow.
So, Golden Knights they were sitting right in front of our faces, and we didn't look at it at all. And it's very obvious of why they're doing so well. I mean, from the expansion, they got a bunch of second liners. So their first, second, third, fourth line, they're all second liners. They have a terrific goalie. Eichel is a hell of a talent. He was a snag from Buffalo. They got him. He was not having fun with Buffalo. We had some disagreements with the front office. And then they were like, all right, you go and you leave. And he's just been on tear. And they're a team that just is so sound at every single line, every position, that it just makes sense why they're there right now and why they've been good ever since they started. Expansion teams.
Vegas, Seattle. What's the next one that's going to just immediately make runs to the cup? It's incredible. But Vegas has always been a fun team to watch. I've always enjoyed them. And honestly, I'm happy. If it wasn't, honestly, Edmonton, Vegas was the team I wanted there. And
out of the West.
I'm very happy with that. The East, man, and this is the quick topic of conversation. The Florida Panthers are in the Stanley Cup. What else can you say? And the question is, we spoke about it, and it's funny how it happened. Do you think the Rangers or the Devils, if they got past the Hurricanes, would have had a better shot to make the cup than the Hurricanes, or I guess the Panthers?
Yeah.
Too. Like, do
And
you think either of our teams, the teams that we were so convinced were going to go on these great runs, at least in my case, the Rangers, do we think they would have had a better shot?
when it comes down to it, the Devils grinded out that first series, which we saw with the Rangers, and they won that. And you know what? Rangers or Devils going on to play the Hurricanes. We saw what the Hurricanes did to the Devils. They walked all over them. Walked all over them. I think the Hurricanes were just that. They're besides the Golden Knights, they have the most like just well put together roster, but their just game plan was just faulty, and that's pretty much why the Predators just ran right over them. So saying that, like the Hurricanes ran over the Devils, then the Panthers ran over the Hurricanes. So the Panthers really earned this. I mean, Tkachuk has been just, I don't think I've ever seen an athlete have so many clutch moments in one playoffs.
He might be one of my favorite players in that. Like, he's probably number 2 behind McDavid for me. Like,
he gets it for me because he's more the guy, like if he's on your team, you love him. If you're playing against him, you hate him.
Yeah, hate him.
This case,
hate him.
He's a bully on the ice. He's a hell of a talent. He's American, which is cool to see in a sport that just Americans do not dominate at all. And he's really put his name as top 3 American hockey player right now, if it's not one.
And the most important thing for the sport of hockey, I'm pretty sure he's from Florida. I'm pretty sure, right? Or at least he's taking. At least he's fully repping the area.
Oh, he definitely is.
Where it's like,
I don't know if he's from Florida. I thought it was California.
Probably is, but either way, he's taking an area that has just been ridiculed in hockey. Oh, warm weather, and he's putting it on the map. He's putting it on the map once again. And in my opinion, so many fans are going to become hockey fans, or so many people are going to become hockey fans, to put it in a better sense, because of Tkachuk and the Panthers. The Panthers are going to be one of the most enjoyable teams to watch for the foreseeable future, solely because of what Tkachuk and the rest of the roster is bringing.
And they won the President's Trophy in 2021.
Yep. Last year. No, it was last year.
Yeah, 2021 last year, 2022.
Yeah.
I meant 21, 22. Yeah.
I was like,
But, like, they're sitting on the back of Bobrovsky. I hope I said that right, the goaltender. I mean, he was a top 3 tender when he was in Columbus and then kind of fell off, and now he's just right back at it. But hell of a run by them. The 2 Florida 8 seeds, what's that about?
Something in the water down there. You had FAU too. Like,
right?
It's insane. But truthfully, I don't think the Rangers make it past the Canes either. Quite frankly, I think if they ran into the Panthers, probably half their guys would have been like knocked out with how physical Florida. I mean, look at the hits Florida was putting on Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, the Rangers, as much as I love them, they're not built for that style of hockey right now. Not whatsoever. I just don't, unless their offense literally was scoring 7 or not 7, like 5 goals a game, you weren't getting past the Panthers.
No.
I think the Panthers, and we talked about this before the playoffs started, Panthers were just that team you didn't want to run into.
No.
They're that team that snuck in, just like the Heat, and they're that roster and that group of players that you simply just don't want to run into at all.
I'm very curious to see what would have happened if it was flipped, like the Islanders played on the Metro side. Oh, no. No, sorry.
Atlantic.
Yes, the Atlantic side, and the Panthers came to that side, because I think the Bruins would have met them late then, and then would have been like a big Eastern Conference Finals for that.
Bruins, wait. So you think if it starts off Carolina, Florida, that Florida still gets through Carolina?
I guess it gets to the point where
that's the thing. The momentum started with the 3-0 comeback.
Yeah.
Because remember, Boston jumps out to the 3-0 series lead.
Was it 3 or 3-1?
3-1. My apologies.
But still, yeah, 3-1.
So, I mean, 2 Boston teams losing in Game 7s. That's hilarious, but that's beside the point. I'm a hater. It's fine. Don't worry. But it's an interesting theory to think about because if Boston plays the Islanders are a very similar roster, or not roster, but play style to Florida.
Yeah.
So that might mean the Leafs get to the Eastern Conference Final. And then you have a potential, because I think the Leafs would have beat the Islanders.
Do you think the Islanders will beat the Bruins?
I think they would have had a shot.
Okay.
Because I think they would have a shot, but I think the Leafs, if they play Boston, I think the Leafs make the Eastern. I think whoever advances, I think the Leafs beat. The Panthers were just uniquely. The Panthers were a very unique team. On the other side of the bracket, maybe something Florida does in that series causes Carolina to not be at full strength, and then the Devils take it's dropping the pebble in the middle of the lake and then seeing the ripples. Like we don't know, right? But it's a very fun exercise to think about.
Yeah,
because the Rangers series doesn't get affected, but everything else after that does.
Yeah. And then the whole playoffs is different, so it is interesting to see how that works out. But now we do have a series that is actually happening.
Yes. With
Florida and the Knights, and I'm just real quick, I'm going with the Knights in a really good series. 6 or 7 games.
This sucks because I'm a fan of both teams. Like, I want the underdog story, but I want Vegas.
I think both Florida teams lose. I think it's
just for
Knights.
Just for the sake of being different and just having the opposite opinion on the show, because I'm legit 50-50. I'm gonna say Panthers in 7.
Okay. I like it. I got Knights in 7.
All right. So that, man, we came down to the wire today.
Yes, we did.
You know, like we said, fun show, lots of topics. Topics, honestly, the more I'm thinking about, we didn't even get to everything that we could have talked about. I mean, we have to get to an Oakland A's conversation at some point.
Okay.
I mean, 40-plus losses already.
Yeah. They were 10-45 last night. I'm guessing if they lost again yesterday, then they'd be 10-46.
They beat the Braves.
Oh, wow. 11-45.
Yeah.
Good for them.
The fans, that whole aspect, talking about disappointing baseball teams. We'll look at, once it gets to the NBA and NHL offseason, we'll look at that. But at the end of the day, thank you guys for joining us on another great show. We appreciate all the comments, all the different discussions, all the different ideas you guys bring to the table. It's always fun. It's always engaging. It's always very enjoying, to be completely honest with you. But we will be back next week with more MLB talk, more NFL talk, more NBA talk, more NHL talk, and whatever else we decide to bring to the table, because that's just how we roll. So, Toomey, any parting thoughts before we get out of here?
No. Enjoy the finals. It's going to suck, though. The NHL finals is not going to start till Saturday. So we'll get game. I think we'll only get one game, and then we'll see. We'll discuss that next week. But no, just going to enjoy the sports that we got coming our way. Go Yankees.
Yep. For me, looking forward to a great Mets and Phillies series, no matter how it turns out. It's always a fun one. Looking forward to seeing the DeAndre Hopkins situation play out. Just as a sports fan, the finals, NHL, MLB, or NHL, NBA. MLB is nowhere near the end of the season yet. But thank you guys for joining us. For Toomey, myself, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. We'll catch you next time.
See you.